All right. Welcome back to another weekly analysis with a Winner Circle Trader. Today, basically, it was a no news Monday. Therefore, it's a no trade day for me. And that's why, if you're in the Discord, I already let you guys know that I would not be doing a weekly analysis on Sunday. I'd rather do it today. And yeah, the reason being, of course, that it doesn't matter what the bias or narrative is if I'm not even going to be trading the next day. And if you have been trading ICT for a while, you know already to not be trading no news Mondays. Anyways, let's get into the news for the week. As we already discussed, Monday there's no news, which means to not trade during that day. Tuesday there is Fed Chair Powell speaking. So all that means to me is to not trade before market open. Wednesday, 10 a.m. existing home sales. Just be aware of 10 a.m. news if you're in a trade, but it doesn't really matter too much. Thursday, 8:30 unemployment claims. Look for data wicks. 9:45 a.m. Look for data wicks. But basically, I'd be open to trade from 8:35 onwards until probably about 9:10. And if I'm already in a trade, I'll stay in it until through the news and through the market open. But if I'm not, I would probably just stop looking for trades after 9:10. And I'm not going to be trading at market open. I would wait for the actual news to do its thing at 9:45, and I would be basically looking to trade from the next macro, which is at 9:50 to 10:10. 10 a.m. news doesn't really matter so much because there's already two red folder news events occurring. Friday, 8:30, orange folder news doesn't really matter too much. Um, Honestly, not a very eventful week. The only eventful day is Thursday. And yeah, you could expect a lot of chop. So it just means to be more patient. Allow the market to generate a lot of liquidity and only start trading if you see some big moves happening with good targets already generated beforehand. Now, if the Asia session and the London session have not been generating liquidity, but instead moving a lot, it just means to skip the AM session. And yeah, that all said, let's get into the actual analysis. So, looking at the weekly candles, last week actually opened or closed quite bullish. And we would have expected the high of previous week high to get ran at some point. And it just so happened to have already gotten ran during the Asia or London session, I think, today. Let me just double check that. Okay, it probably just happened at market open. Um, Anyways, there's not too much to be said. The target, the most likely 100% hit rate target already hit. So, um, to get more narrative, we're just gonna keep zooming in. The daily chart would suggest that we have taken external range liquidity already. Let me just remove everything. We've already taken external range liquidity, and now what we expect is for price to come down and balance out this daily fair value gap and maybe go back up or close below and continue down lower. On the 4-hour chart, very similar, except we have a 4-hour fair value gap right here, which is holding so far. But if it doesn't, I would expect price to probably go to the daily fair value gap. And yeah, so I'm bearish right now for Tuesday, and I expect price to just keep going lower. If it's going higher, I don't really have any targets, any good targets at least to aim for, except for previous day high tomorrow. But The bias is technically bullish until we break this 4 hour rally gap, and it remains kind of bullish until we break this daily fair value gap tomorrow, which probably not so likely since we are just moving up almost every day. But of course, retracements are to be expected, and yeah, there's not really much to do until some lows are taken, anyways. And yeah, I would expect basically either to not trade or for us to get some sort of a bearish move tomorrow. Now, 15-minute chart. There's not really an SMT up here, and the high was not really taken. So, seems like generated liquidity here, and honestly, it looks like market should still go back up from here. So I actually just got done looking at YM, and it kind of supports the whole narrative with the generated highs because YM actually created some equal highs, even though basically on the low time frame, it did sweep the previous high that NQ and ES did not, which led to a short-term SMT, leading price to go down and take this low. However, before it did so, it also created equal highs with a 50-minute candle at 9:15 on Friday, and it supports basically the narrative that price should go back up eventually. Another thing that supports this bullish kind of hypothesis is a bullish SMT that's been created with NQ and ES so far. ES and NQ have not taken this low that YM has taken. Now, ES actually is or was quite close to taking it out. And I guess the market just kind of happened to close before it could, or, after 4 p.m., I mean, not much is expected to happen anyways. So at market open tomorrow, we could see price just kind of open below the low, but also we could see price go up. And that's not very clear to me right now. All I can see on the lower time frame is that NQ is the most bullish asset. So if you are looking to long, it would be the ideal asset to be trading. If you are bearish somehow and you don't care about this SMT at all, obviously YM and ES would be much more ideal to take shorts on. And yeah, to me, basically, every time frame I'm looking at is telling me something pretty different, which I do not like because I like all time frames to align, and that's what creates the best trading outcomes for me and the highest probability trades. And at the moment, what I'm seeing is a 4 hour fair value gap is being respected so far. However, there is a lot of bearish momentum. And as long as this is holding, NQ is expected to stay bullish. As soon as this 4 hour fair value gap gets invalidated, though, I'd expect the next internal low to get hit, which is the 6 a.m. low, 6 a.m. candle low from today. After that, I don't know. Excuse my dog if you can hear him. But afterwards, I do not know for sure if the price is gonna, keep going lower or if we just get a move back up immediately because NQ is just so bullish at all-time highs. However, what I would like to see if that 4 hour fair value gap gets invalidated is for price to move lower to the daily fair value gap and balance that out. If that's a big if the daily fair value gap gets invalidated, I would actually expect price to be very bearish and continue lower to 22,801, 22,781. These are again low resistance liquidity targets because it was just a lot of lows that did not take out the previous internal low. So I would expect them to get run. After that, I don't know what would happen. Maybe price just kind of pumps back up. But if it doesn't, we can also see a weekly fair value gap getting balanced because, well, price has just kind of been accelerating back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks without really retracing back and balancing this range. So that would make sense. And therefore, even though on the lower time frame, I'm actually bullish, all in all, if I really had to be in a long-term trade, I'd rather short than buy here. However, of course, because we're at all-time highs, we really don't know yet how much higher we're going to be going before going back lower. But yeah, I hope I haven't confused you guys too much. It is pretty late in the day for me in Europe, so I'm honestly getting a little bit confused. So I'm just gonna take my time off now, and be fresh for tomorrow. But yeah, I hope everything makes sense. To just kind of summarize, on the lower time frame, we have a lot of generated highs actually, which I expect to get taken due to a bullish SMT with YM, equal highs above on YM, the highs not getting taken out on either ES or NQ with generated highs. So it just makes sense right now for price to move back up. If it somehow doesn't do that, I would expect a very bullish reaction at the lows. Um, at the same time, if you go to the 4 hour, daily, weekly time frames, there are certain objectives to be met on the 4 hour time frame. We do already have a retracement to the 4 hour gap, and it has definitely got the potential to go back to all-time highs. However, if the next candles close back below this 4 hour gap and invalidated, I'd expect price to move back much lower to, first of all, the first target, which would be the internal low here, as well as the daily fair value gap to get balanced as well. Now, I would actually stay bullish until this daily, as long as this daily fair value gap is respected. So if this low gets taken, or if this low gets taken, I would actually be looking for signatures in price to long. And if I don't get them, I just don't do anything. If the market actually invalidates this daily fair value gap, I would start looking for shorts. What I mean by that is retracements up to take out highs, and then market structure shifts to then look for moves much lower. And yeah, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm getting very tired, so I'm just gonna stop here. Hope you have a good week. Hope everything makes sense. And as long as you just follow your rules, stick to your strategy, use good risk, you'll do just fine. Peace.